Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you, and peace out to the rest of you. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. Sorry about the noise, but I'm getting off the bus. Where my wife lives. So it's going to be loud. But look, I'm going to tell y'all straight about this black fatigue. It's not properly named, for one. It was named in a book, Black Fatigue. It was about our fatigue. And what this Karen bitch in her car was talking about was just white unaccountability. Matter of fact, it was cracker unaccountability. And I say that only to be fair to those who are just born white with the DNA and they're not crackers mentally, but crackers is my way to identify the whip crackers. And even when a white guy with or without a drawl says something about my bootstraps and personal accountability, I'm with SWP. Fuck them crackers. Damn them crackers to hell. And there's a hole in my heart that's never going to be filled until Judgment Day, when I see them goddamn race oppressors and their sympathizers and enablers grabbed by angels and thrown into hell head first, and they scream in major pain trying to get out and they can't. And even then, that hole's not going to be completely filled until it's gone on for a few years. My entertainment, if I make it into paradise, ya Allah, please allow me, my entertainment is largely going to be sitting at the balconies looking where you can see into hell, just to see the wicked being tortured for what they did. Not only what they did, but how long they got away with it. My ability to draw near to God has been hampered in this life because of how long they've gotten away with it. And it was only made worse by nig Christians and niglums preaching their negligence that just glorified suffering, and even tied that to God's very identity and said, well, yes, God's, it's who God is. And then the niglums talking about, that's who Allah is, brother. And, screw y'all and damn y'all to hell for that, because you lied on Allah to try to explain suffering. He created this world as a test, but you made it sound like the purpose was to suffer, not to worship. And I still hate y'all to this day for saying stuff like that. And those of you that were Muslim and said it are still, I hate you as if you were never Muslim. It's the same hatred I would have for you if you were a nig Christian coming out of a nigger church trying to teach this shit to me. I hate you no less. Matter of fact, I hate you more because you twisted the true religion to say that Allah's identity is tied into our suffering, like his identity is dependent upon human suffering, especially black human suffering. You pretty much lied. You did lie. Either you learned it from somebody and didn't double check when it should not have even made sense to you, or you knew somebody was lying and you said it intentionally. And I don't need to learn more patience. You niggas need to learn more truth and more knowledge and fuck the shuck up with the show a bit. You suck. SWP and I are not going to agree on religion until he not only accepts that there's a God, but accepts that Allah is God. The deity is just the Arabic translation for the deity, that he is God. But here's where he and I do understand something. He is going to be responsible and held accountable for what he believes or disbelieves, just like I will. And if he dies believing what he does now, there won't be anything I can do to get him off the hook. Nothing I will do, nothing I could say, nothing I could do would get him off the hook. It's over for him. But for his atheism, I also blame nig Christians, niglums, and them goddamn crackers. I blame them as well for his atheism. They got away, them crackers got away with too goddamn much, and nig Christians and niglums weren't the reason that they got away with it, but they just kind of paved the path And they made it such that if I come along and talk about what the truth is, now he can't even hear it. He can't hear what Bilal, the features, knows and could preach and could explain. He can't hear it anymore. You see, when you lie to somebody enough times, or you give them incomplete truths enough times, they can't understand the rest of the explanation or the truth. It's like me in math. One of the things that made it possible for me to eventually get a solid grip on the math that I need was that I wasn't lied to about what the answers were. I wasn't told lies about the fundamentals of math. I was under-explained these things, and I was sort of thrown in the deep end, but I was not lied to. If I'd been lied to, I would not have been able to believe that 2 and 2 equal to 4 in the end, because if I'd been told that 2 and 2 equals to 6, I would have thought that 6 is the same quantity that we call 4. You get it now? That's what happens even when it comes down to these answers, these complex questions. And I fear what's going to happen to many of us, but the atheism is the fault of these oppressors. And that goddamn that cracker unaccountability. That's even worse than the Karens. Is the real fatigue. The rest of the world feels that. It's even people that are not our friends, that are not even neutral to us, but our goddamn enemies also feel that. They just tend to forget about it when our black asses come around. And they're like, oh my God, the niggers again. Because they're so brainwashed. Sometimes they didn't even require much brainwashing to see the world that way. Hindus, I'm talking about your asses. Muslims in the subcontinent who follow the Hindus, I'm talking about your asses too. Matter of fact, I'm talking about y'all even worse because you had the solution. You had the answer. You knew that 4 was the sum of 2 and 2, and you still called it 6. So damn you motherfuckers even more, because you knew better. That's why I don't pray behind you fuckers in the masajid. If I find out that you follow the Hindus, that's why I don't respect your culture. That's why I don't respect your tribes. I don't respect a goddamn thing about y'all that makes you unique. If you follow them into them. And the thing is, I'm not just angry for my own people's sake. I'm also angry for the sake of your own people who actually practice the faith and they walk the walk, and then they got to deal with your asses lying on them because you don't like the fact that they're taking it seriously. See, if a black man is angry at crackers, now they might just say white folks, meaning the white collective, which we know. But if a black man is angry at crackers like SWP, then let's say he became Muslim and and the next week he was in the masjid preaching against these damn crackers. And you come up and try to tell him, calm down, brother, you might offend the white Muslims. No, you shut the fuck up, because the white Muslim knows that he's telling the truth. He might be there helping and preaching with him. That's why you always telling the white Muslims to calm down a bit. The difference is white Muslims ain't pointing the fingers at you as much because they kind of sympathize with you because they see you as brainwashing victims. You're treating them very well, so they treat you well in general, but they do see the inferiority complex in you after a short time. Usually what it is that they accept the religion. They come in, then one day someone like SWP comes in preaching about them goddamn crackers, and he ain't talking about the white Muslim that joined the brotherhood. He's not, or the white sister. He's not talking about them. They know it. He knows it. That's not what the problem is. And you come along and you might hurt his heart. No, the hell he won't. And when that white Muslim realizes that you treated him so well when he joined in, but you're not extending the same welcome to SWP because of his legitimate grievances against them goddamn crackers, that's when it is that people start saying, man, you know what? Screw you. You failed. You've had this for 1,000 years? You failed. You ain't done nothing with it. You've had the instructions, you've had the solution for 1,000 years, and you ain't done shit except sit there and worship white folks and look up to white folks and love on white folks. And that's when that white Muslim looks at you and says, oh, wait a minute, hold up. He has legitimate grievances. I know what my grandfather did. I know what my grandfather said. I know what my grandfather would have done to you. I know what I left behind. I know I know who considers me a traitor to them because of the truth that I accepted. I know these things. He's telling the truth. They are your enemies and they're my enemies. And you want to sit up here and cater to feelings I don't even have anymore at the expense of this man's legitimate grievances. That's what winds up happening. So when SWP is angry, I get that. When he's an atheist, well, I don't agree. But I understand that it is the fault of not only damn crackers. Notice I'm not saying white folks. Because when he says fuck white folks, he's talking about the collective. You think he's really sitting up and telling every white doctor in the hospital, F you too, I'm not going to help you save the life of this patient, you bun of a sitch? You think he's doing that? No. A bunch of people would die on the operating table if that's the case. That's not what's going on. I know he's talking about their collective. And he's right to be angry. They are not human. Their system is inhumane. Their politics are inhumane. Their sensibilities, ideas they just take for granted as logical are not even up to human intellect. My bootstraps, meritocracy. He's right when he mocks them for that. Because they didn't get where they were by their bootstraps. They got them by stealing other people's bootstraps. That's the basis of white wealth, domination, and comfort. And using other groups as middle buffer classes between them and us is the reason for their relative comfort compared to us. And they don't always have that. When you go into some parts of the world, they don't even have that all the time. I'm telling you now, if you're here and where I live, you're here where I live, it is far better to be of our race than it is to be from a particular country right next to India. I won't say its name. And they don't deserve the discomfort they have here and the low salaries, the low salary caps they have. They don't deserve that. But what I'm telling you here is that they get it. They don't deserve it, but they have it. The quality of the jobs that they can get and the caps on their salaries, yeah, it's low. They have to work a lot and hard for in exchange for very little. That's the end of it. Can't have their families over here with them. Yeah, bro, it sucks. I think it's and see, we're sitting thinking, oh, it's just us that got to deal with this everywhere we go. It's only us. No, there's some places where it's better to be us than them. But by the same token, there have been some people who have tried to tell me that I shouldn't show too much respect to certain other groups of people here. And I'm like, what the hell do they do? Okay, this group over here is disrespectful. Okay, they really are. I find out about it. Yeah, okay, sure. I won't show them too much respect because of how they are. Not because of what you said. Okay, this group over here ain't done nothing to you. Well, what the hell? I ain't got a problem with them. We cool. Matter of fact, you've been disrespecting them. You the one I got a problem with. That's how we have to play that. That's how that goes. The world is at a type of fatigue, and I've even heard some people here, usually they're more educated, but I've seen some people here express a fatigue from dealing with the white folk. They get sick and tired of their unaccountability. An Italian, well, he was some kind of European man a few years ago. It was during Valentine's Day of 2023. He got up in the middle of an Italian restaurant, started dancing with his wife in front of everybody. And that's relatively goofy by our standards, but not outright disrespectful by our standards. But by the standards of the people here, that was outright disrespectful. It's like, what the hell, bro? We love our wives too. We love our husbands too. We don't get up and dance with them in the middle of a damn restaurant while everybody's eating. And wait till Valentine's Day to do it on top of that. Nah, bro. And people were sick of it. My students at the time came and told me there was one lady who herself was quite liberal. Quite liberal. She talked about my daughter in New York she has quite the mouth on her, quite the attitude. I was like, you raised her in New York. She said, yeah, but I didn't raise her like this. You don't have to. The fact that you raised her in New York is enough. But when it came down to certain things like public decorum, this lady was sitting up saying, no, we don't do that. No, we don't do that. She was like, This man got up, grabbed his wife, pulled her up, and started dancing with her in the restaurant. They weren't even mad at the wife because he just kind of scooped her up and started dancing. They were looking at him, and I said to her, really, who is this dude? She said, I don't know his name. I was there at the restaurant, though. He was some blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy. Sick of him. I thought, oh, because I never heard Arabs express being sick of people with blonde hair and blue eyes, but she called this dude out. She's like, blonde hair, blue eyes. I'm tired of them. Don't know how to behave in somebody else's home. I said, oh, wow. They know the difference. They get it. And it's just like this movie featuring Anthony Mackie in which he plays the robot, a sentient robot owned by the military that develops his own plans. And he explains to one other black soldier, listen, we do diplomacy. Now, why do you think they designed me like this instead of a good old all-American blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy? Because I represent the neutrality. I don't represent imperialism. He stated that. He said that. And I'm telling you guys now, man, look. When SWP says the stuff he says, he calls them out. He holds them accountable. That's why he does not care about black crime spilling over into white areas. I don't fiv-a-guck either. I kind of feel bad for younger whites who had nothing to do with it. I even feel bad sometimes for whites that are egalitarian. They're rare. They do exist, but they're rare. But I do sometimes feel bad for them, although I don't tell this to other people. But I'm with him in that in general, collectively speaking, not only do I not fiv-a-guck about it, I think it's long overdue. He said you should be dealing with a full-blown insurrection, and I agree. Morally speaking, that's what black folks owe to white folk. That's just something that white folks would never sit up. They're never going to admit that they deserve a damn insurrection. They're never going to admit that black America should have been their first Al-Qaeda to deal with. And that's a poor example to make because I don't even know who created them. But if that's their big, well, let me rephrase that because I don't know enough about them to say anything. But that the first real big boogeyman they should have ever, and I mean real boogeyman, not the one they made up because they did do that, but the first actual true boogeyman they should have ever had to face should have been us. We should have been their first and last boogeyman. I ain't gonna lie, Dennis Sperling one time said we weren't just there with the colonizer, we were their black shadow. That's been the damn problem. They fight us, we turn around, fight for them. That's been our major sin. And as a matter of fact, I came to understand a while back that is one of the reasons we don't have more help from God than what we have. We've put on the uniform not to get the training so we could use it for ourselves. We put on their uniform to get the benefits. And to get the benefits ain't the wrong thing to do in and of itself, but there's a line past which you don't cross. You don't, putting on their uniform, we never realized that putting on their uniforms was about like putting on a KKK uniform. There's a point where you don't know this, but then after a while you begin to realize that's what the hell it amounts to, putting on a KKK uniform. Take their uniforms off. Now today, General Langley does not have the freedom to sit up and say, listen, Captain Traore ain't doing none of the stuff you all want me to say he's doing. He ain't doing none of that. Even though I'm in charge of AFRICOM, he's not the problem. He doesn't have the freedom to say that because he understands he wouldn't be general if he would say something like that. That's what I keep trying to get y'all to understand. At some point, we were supposed to stop being that damn black shadow. There weren't supposed to be Buffalo soldiers fighting against the Apache, and there were many Buffaloes, well, I don't know how many, but there were Buffalo soldiers that defected, said, shuck this fit, they ran to Mexico. Stayed there because the U.S. Army could not follow them into Mexico as an army. They weren't able to do that. The Mexican government was like, don't cross this border. You already won this land, and then we sold it to you. But the border that we now have is still the border. Do not cross into here. Don't even cross into here looking for your own soldiers. That's an internal affair. It has no bearing, no business over here. And those soldiers settled in Mexico and lived there legally and founded towns like El Mulatto. Which is funny because mulatto in the U.S. is somebody that's half black and half white. But in Mexico, it was someone that is at least half black and half mestizo, which is another admixture. So what is this? But anyway, that just goes to show you that many northern Mexicans saw themselves as white. I don't play that. But they did. Cracked me up to no end. I sit up, even now, today, I sit up and I look. And I realize that I realize that a lot of people actually have been led to the path of atheism because you have two kinds of people that are really preaching God in general, whatever religion, they're preaching God. You got two types, white folks that are preaching their white supremacist conquering view of God, incapable of seeing the equality in the human species he created as equal in the first place, only viewing equality to mean that they shouldn't be punished for what they do. And then the negligous people who also preach God as depending upon us suffering, like he needs us to suffer for him to remain on his throne. Not even realizing that's what they're saying. And the problem comes in because, you know, people like that, it's sort of like criminals that start to see one of their own being out and free early. Well, what did you do? What deal did you cut? No, bro. No, see, everybody else is stuck behind bars and somehow you out. And sometimes they right and sometimes they wrong. But what this has done is that it has caused many of us to have that same view. Wait a minute, you ain't suffering poverty. You're not stuck in this hard-working, low-paying job like the rest of us, or you must have sold your soul to the devil. And you know what? You know who took advantage of that window and that mindset and that way of thinking? South African police, when they were fighting to maintain apartheid, they did. They used to arrest cells that were countering or protesting apartheid, which was illegal. They would take cells and they would arrest them, throw them behind bars, and then this is where it got even worse. They would always take one. They would take one of the most revolutionary and militant ones. They would release him in front of the others, and then they would do this just to create some sort of suspicion surrounding some of the most militant and revolutionary ones, so that their own compatriots, their own comrades, I should say, would take them out suspecting treachery. Well, we all got arrested, but you got released right after. What the hell happened? If they let you see them release somebody right off the bat, they want you to think this way. And many South African cells fell for this and took out their own most militant revolutionary members because they were free, because they weren't in prison, but they could not get papers to leave the country. And this is what they didn't think about. Somebody selling you out would try to make arrangements to escape the consequences. These guys wouldn't. How did you get out so early? They didn't tell me how I got out early. They just came and said, get out. They opened the cell door, called my name, and told me to get out. I'm waiting on them to release the rest of them. When they're not releasing them yet, okay, well, I'm still waiting. Yeah, right. Pow! This is what happens. So simply by oppressing a group and then turning around and letting some individuals off the hook, you create this distrust between them and others. And so the devil can sit up here and just go easy on a particular person, and then that creates distrust. And that's something that we made easy with our mindset because of our negligence. And unfortunately, when all you can do is use negligence to answer certain questions people need answered, that can actually be answered in my religion, then you make people incapable of understanding and knowing the truth when they hear it, because they've heard so many lies. Now everything sounds like a lie. The truth does not stand clear. It might sound a little bit different, but but every lie before sounded different from the lie before it, and so therefore the truth just fits into that pattern of another lie. This is jacked up. This is up, but this is something that we have largely done, and we have actually cooperated with the oppressors to a certain extent and to a certain goal, which was to justify and make easy and lubricate the path to atheism. I'm not telling you that any atheist is going to get away with it in the end. But what I am telling you is there are going to be plenty of white folk and plenty of us that are going to have to answer not only for what we have done, but also what we have influenced others to do. Because that's a part of what we did. We're going to have to answer for that. You gave this answer without adequate knowledge. You sat up here and tied the identity of God to the suffering of this black person who did not do anything to provoke it. The suffering that some others had to experience, and the suffering that many others did not. But certainly there was not a default just by being alive. You acted like this was a default that comes with simply worshiping, as if God had never rescued anybody. You took this God who promised the test of ease and of hardship, and you sat up here and limited his identity to the worshiper's test of hardship only, and answered confidently that that's all it was. And you don't think that you're going to have to give some sort of answer for why that person came to conclude that either God was an enemy or that God wasn't there. You'd have been better off saying, well, this is what I know and this is what I don't know. And I don't want to lie to you about what I don't know or what I know. I don't know more than this, and you might have to ask someone, and if you do, hey, listen, I will listen to whatever you find out and learn. This is necessary. But I'm glad to hear that some people are starting to look at this. Even white folks now are starting to look at this system. And they're starting to say, man, the hell with that. Some white guys are sitting up and saying, man, F. Traore's enemies. Ibrahim Traore is right. He's doing the right thing. This is what you're supposed to do for your people. He was nice for buying back some of these mines from these companies that owned them. He could have just taken them by force, and I think that's what he should have done. Some of these white folks are sitting up and saying, these damn Boers out of South Africa weren't supposed to get refugee status if Trump was actually fair. They weren't supposed to get it, and then to make matters worse, to make things worse even than that, they took the refugee status. Most of them didn't, but the ones who did took the status. All they're really running from is equality. That's all they're really running from. Everybody's suffering in South Africa now, and they're running because of that. Buns of sitches. With that being said, I've been here for a while at the station, waiting on my wife to come get me. I better call her and see what's keeping her so late. Thank you all for listening. And next time some next time some cracker says something about some black fatigue, say, no, it's white unaccountability. That's what that is, and you know it is. And they start talking any kind of sensibilities that normalize their heritage and their identity, not genetically, but their actual cultural identity. Say, you know what, fuck you, damn you. If you don't feel comfortable saying the F word, then say the D word, because it's out the scripture. Damn you. Your whole viewpoint on your whole view of life is wrong. having to hear about the effects of what your ancestors did that continue on to this day is the bare minimum. As long as you enjoy those damn benefits, if you don't want to hear about it, give up the benefits. Start your ass over from scratch. If it means you're in chains and we own you, so goddamn what? It's long overdue. Good news is we don't actually want to own you. You could just give up everything and then fit the guck out and go start over in Europe. Oh, that's right. Your ancestors left because they couldn't get anything in Europe. Not anything commensurate to what their asses actually deserved and worked for. As always, thank you for listening. Black Heart, Black Mind, Blackout, Assalamu Alaikum, Black. Heterosexual, non-select male power because they don't like it in black. Patriarchy until extinction of Judgment Day. Thank you for flying with us again here on Jet Black Air. What a phrase, Jet Black is also a verb. Keep jetting black with us on these crackers until the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender and racial justice forever.